Welcome to our 6th episode of EnergyBin Insights, the webinar series that explores solutions for PV repair, resale, and recycling. Thanks for being here today. My name is Melissa Schmidt, and I'm the Marketing Communication Manager here at EnergyBin. We are an online business community comprised of solar PV professionals who are committed to accelerating a robust and sustainable secondary market. Our members come together via trade, networking, and educational activities like this webinar. These webinars are made possible in collaboration with industry professionals like yourselves. Join our EnergyBin community to support these efforts, to buy and sell solar equipment on our safe trading platform, and to network with your industry peers. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel where a recording of this webinar will be posted, and you can also access other EnergyBin Insights webinar recordings as well. Today's presentation is all about secondhand solar modules. I'm joined by Vince Lucia, the Executive Director of Good Sun, a registered nonprofit that seeks to redeploy still viable solar panels to communities in need. Before I hand the presentation over to Vince, who will share all about the wonderful work Good Sun is doing in this area, I'll give a market overview of secondhand module trade we're seeing on the EnergyBin wholesale exchange among our members who resell secondhand goods. Feel free to ask questions as we go. Thanks to those who submitted questions in advance. We'll have time at the end of the presentation to address your questions. And I also posted the link in the chat box for you to download these presentation slides. I'll begin the market overview with data from EnergyBin's 2021 PV module price index, which tracks crystalline silicon module trade on our wholesale exchange. Of the 2 million modules, or 745 plus megawatts listed for resale last year, 96% were new with warranty and 4% were used. Note that all these modules, new and used, have fallen out of the primary market for one reason or another. For example, asset liquidations, bankruptcies, project cancellations or downsizes, clearance, surplus, leftovers from bulk projects or bulk orders, etc., and therefore are considered secondary market goods when listed for resale on EnergyBin. We saw prices ranging from a low of 8.6 cents per watt to a high of 26 cents per watt, with an average of 15 cents for these secondhand modules. In December of 2021, the average was 10.6 cents per watt. The caveat is many factors go into considering the value of secondhand modules, which I'll get into in a bit. Of these modules listed on EnergyBin last year, we saw prices or wattage ranging from 120 watts to as much as 435 watts. We saw modules as young as 6 months old to as mature as 10 years old. Interestingly, I've already seen an uptick of secondhand module trade on EnergyBin in this first quarter, and wouldn't be surprised if we see a greater volume of secondhand trade in 2022 over 2021. With respect to the value of secondhand material, it's really determined on a case-by-case basis. On our wholesale exchange, we tend to see sellers listing prices 50 to 75% below the price of new modules. And just like new modules, demand plays a huge role in determining the value of used modules. So right now, global demand for US rated secondhand module supply is extremely high. And the reason being, all of you techies out there know that this equipment is so much higher quality than other equipment that may be available for sale in some parts of the world. And then the greatest denominator, I believe, in determining the value is basically where is the buyer located. We all know with freight costs fluctuating these last few years, that can play a huge role in factoring the price as well. And then other sellers will take into account the age of the panels, the number of bus bars, the number of cells, the labeled wattage, and the degradation rate in determining their offer price. However, because no global baseline price exists, many sellers will turn to auction sites to list their lots and attract the highest bidders. So who are these wholesale buyers? Well, it's important to note that because secondhand modules are used for a variety of off-grid and microgrid applications, buyers exist throughout the world, pretty much in every country. These areas that I highlighted in yellow, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America, are the fastest growing markets. And it's really just because it's sandwiched between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, where we get optimal sunlight. Afghanistan is currently the #1 market, followed by Pakistan, and then Djibouti, Somalia, and Ethiopia are also rising markets as well. In the Caribbean, especially Puerto Rico, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Haiti, there exists a big opportunity for secondhand modules paired with second life batteries, as buyers are particularly interested in those solar kits, and the grid systems are either non-existent or not reliable in these areas. For those of you who may be considering purchasing secondhand modules, I have 3 buyer considerations to help you maximize your return on investment. First, pay attention to the age and the degradation rate. Try to buy modules that are no more than 10 to 12 years old and that are performing anywhere from 70, 75%, 80% preferably of their original efficiency. Number 2, verify that the back sheets are not peeling and that the glass is not damaged. Both of these are major safety concerns, and they are also currently rather expensive to repair. At this point in time, these modules are better fit for the recycling facilities. And number 3, buy from a reputable reseller. Take your time to vet your sellers, please. It's really important. Note that some sellers will offer money-back guarantees and or limited service warranties. So be sure to ask your seller when you're vetting them as well regarding those. For those of you who may have solar panels lying around that you don't want anymore and you don't know the value, I recommend working with a company who can inspect and appraise those modules for you. And if you need help connecting to these companies who offer these services, we're happy to oblige. The main point I want to leave with you today is to think before you toss. If you have unwanted solar equipment, do not throw it in the landfill. Rather, take the necessary steps to resell or donate still viable equipment or recycle end-of-life equipment. With that, I want to hand the presentation over to Vince, who will share more about the donation option and how Good Sun is redistributing these materials to communities in need. Welcome, Vince. We'll just take a few minutes here to switch out our screens.
All righty. Thank you, Melissa. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we see your screen.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you all for being part of this presentation today. My name is Vince Lucia, and I am the Executive Director at Good Sun. We are a 501c3 nonprofit solar charity, and we established ourselves back in 2013. The easiest way to explain what we do is we operate similarly to the Habitat for Humanity, but instead of using donations to build houses, we use donations to build solar projects. We like to focus on schools because a single installation could teach many kids about the benefits of clean energy. And then for donations that aren't suitable for installation projects, for instance, when we're doing Habitat for Humanity homes, or we're doing a new install somewhere that we cannot use used equipment on, basically we operate a solar repurpose store similar to what Habitat for Humanity does. And the proceeds from that store help fund the operations and our projects. So our vision with Good Sun, and it changes from time to time, but is to illuminate pathways to sustainability using solar power. Really simple. It's a vision that we feel that other people can capitalize on as well and share that vision. Our mission is to utilize the secondhand solar market to accelerate the transition to a clean power economy and help underserved communities find greater opportunity. In pursuit of this mission, we seek to solve three primary problems. One, of course, solar waste. We know that there's millions of solar panels beginning to reach their end of life in the primary market, and Good Sun works to keep these still viable working panels out of landfills by repurposing them back into what we now call a secondary market. The second thing is poverty. We know that there's lots of people in the world still living without electricity, resulting in the lack of clean water, reliable food. Good Sun seeks to bridge the gap between used solar surplus panels and underserved communities through our donations to these regions. This is something that we're really passionate about and wanted to put a lot of energy towards. When myself and my business partner, Eric Stykes, left our day jobs in 2019, and COVID kind of put a hinder on that, but it's still a really important thing that we want to try to capitalize on and move forward once we get out of this pandemic. And the third thing is the ecological crisis. We all need to share a transition to a sustainable way of life. We see that with, continued depletion, massive amounts of energy demand through utilities. So we work to increase solar access to schools, low-income communities, thereby raising the standard of living for the underserved while promoting the repurposing of solar energy. I'm going to talk a little bit and share with the audience about some of the projects where repurposing and utilizing the secondhand solar market helped serve communities find greater opportunity. So as I said, prior to 2020, we did do a lot of work in Africa 2 years in a row prior to my part of Good Sun, but we worked in Kenya, Africa, putting lighting in the orphanage there, and helped develop a big picture learning lab. Another project was in Uganda, Africa, where we funded the building of 2 additional classrooms for Queen Elizabeth School. And once we did that, project was completed, we added solar to those classrooms so that the kids could see with good lighting. And what we found is that the school became kind of a community hub in the evenings where people would gather and do some reading under the lights and game playing together. So it was really a fun project to be part of. Also currently, this is sort of a new project. It's been ongoing for about a year. We are funding a project called Wildlife Conservation and Anti-Poaching. And this is in Uganda as well. we're basically donating money every month to prevent the poaching of elephants and the lions nearby the Queen Elizabeth National Park. And there's been a lot of this going on. And since we've been helping fund this to educate the people around why it's not a good idea to do this, there has been a decrease. So it's something we haven't really talked about a lot of, but thought I would bring it up today. Projects in our local community. This is a high school. It's a special high school that gives kids a lot of hands-on learning, kids that aren't really into the academic part of it. It's just a little different high school. We put a 12 kilowatt system on this school. Saves the school a lot of money every year on utilities, and plus the solar lab that we built keeps the kids informed and teaches them as the students rotate every couple of years throughout the school. Kids get to see that their school's powered by solar. Another school local in our community, there's an organic garden out there, and this particular project was fun to do because we put solar on top of these trellises that provide shade for the students in their outdoor classroom. And it also, there is a model here of our local Yuba River watershed, which is really unique. And so the water runs through it, and the kids learn a lot about why the watershed's important, and talks about damming and why damming might be good and might not be good. So it was a great place to put solar system to help save that school money. It's another school in our community. We built a ground mount, 11 kilowatts. Again, donated panels that still had great life to them. And we also do a demonstration PV lab here as well, where the kids can just come and look and ask questions about the solar. Another project we did was for a local homeless shelter. This is when we decided to not do installations anymore. So a lot of the past installations we did with volunteers, but the insurance was starting to get a little bit too much for a nonprofit. But we've been really lucky to find a local contractor that is willing to do installs with us and support our efforts for free, which is amazing. We don't have to worry about the liability anymore. So this was a first project we worked on them together with California Solar Electric Company. Kudos to them. This was a 14 kilowatt system on a homeless shelter. Again, no cost to the homeless shelter, and all they get is savings. Something that we do ongoing is we work for our local Habitat for Humanity chapter, where we provide them the solar. They used to do the installations themselves. So that was kind of a no-brainer for us to give them the solar and have them do the work. But our installation partner, California Solar Electric, stepped in again, and they've been doing the installs on these homes as well. So that's really a nice fit. A new project coming up this year. This is 30 kilowatts of solar we're donating to this other nonprofit in our community, South Yuba River Citizens League. That is scheduled to go in April or May this year. Again, our partner contractor is doing the work for free as well. So another really great project. We like to look at ourselves as a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits. And lastly, we just broke ground with Habitat for Humanity in Sacramento, completely different chapter, where we're going to be providing them solar panels, balance of system, design for 20 homes in 2022. Really excited to kick this off this year. How does Good Sun make these projects happen? Well, we make these projects happen through donations from contractors, manufacturers, distributors, and people that just want to donate because they believe in our cause. So talking about this now, we understand that everyone has choices when dealing with end-of-life modules. This slide describes 4 of the end-of-life examples available for modules. There is the for-profit resale, which I think is a great idea as long as they're not being destroyed or thrown in the landfill. Recycling, we have a couple recyclers now in the United States, so that's really, really great news. The landfill, we believe, is not an option. And then there is the nonprofit donation option, which is what Good Son represents. We like to believe that this is a good option for everybody because with this, a nonprofit donation is tax deductible. It helps recycle and repurpose used materials for the projects that we do. You've seen a good resource of that just a few slides back, and it helps underserved communities locally and abroad. More importantly, with the school aspect, teaching sustainability by reducing waste and providing energy for all. Donated materials may be used for our projects or resold. And as I mentioned and indicated earlier, projects that require new material, like for Habitat for Humanity homes, those require all new products. The proceeds from our restore, if you will, help fund those projects. So I leave you with this. When thinking about what to do with your end-of-life PV modules, and it's not just PV modules, it could be racking, it could be inverters, it could be microinverters, it could be optimizers, whatever it is, think about our nonprofit model. Donating to us is quite easy. It's a pretty simple process. And I think that is the last slide. Yes, it is. I hope this all came over clear to you all. And Melissa, I'll hand it back to you and decide how we want to take questions if need be.
Great. Thank you so much, Vince. This is all excellent information. I'll give you all a moment to jot down Vince's information. And any EnergyBin members who are on this webinar, this is follow-up to our big announcement we had here in March that EnergyBin and Good Son are now collaborative partners. So you can find donation information right on our website at energybin.com/donations. And with that, Vince, I want to get a little bit deeper into the step-by-step process that solar companies can take to donate material to Good Son. Would you mind sharing about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. There is a link on our website. If you go on to www.goodson.life, there's a donate page. I feel that it needs to be a little bit updated because there's a lot of messaging in there and not a lot of simple here 1 2 3. So look for that to change in the future, but it's pretty simple. Basically, the questions we'll ask if somebody wants to donate is what type of product do you have, what's the manufacturer, quantity, what condition is it in, you know, is it 9 years old, 10 years old, is it coming off a roof? We don't accept broken panels because basically what that means is we have to then take them and pay for the recycling. We understand that in shipping, usually the bottom ones sometimes get broken, and we're well aware of that. But anyway, going back to the donation process, it's basically the product type, how is it packaged, number of pallets, weight, the location, of course, and then from there, it's pretty straightforward. We move from there, work with our logistics partner, and sometimes coordinate together on a real simple process to get the product to us. Once the product's received, a donation receipt is issued to the manufacturer, contractor, distributor, whomever. A lot of cases, and from what we do, a lot of our contractor ground, sometimes the donation receipt is actually going to the homeowner. So a lot of solar installation contractors are realizing that the homeowners get a benefit of that as well. And so sometimes they win the job when they offer that as an alternative. when we're doing decommissioning and putting up new panels.
Excellent. And I also found very helpful on your website that because these donations are tax deductible, there is a link to IRS guidelines if your company or you as an individual need to follow those. So be sure to check out those resources at goodsun.life. And so
always
how,
check with your,
go ahead. Yeah.
always check with your CPA accounting firms as well, just to see, because sometimes what you've done the year before, you might not be able to do the second year or whatever. So always just check and make sure you've got everything, on the good side.
Well said. This question is, how can we vet who we give solar panels to in terms of charities that exist out there in order to guarantee that those materials actually go to the people who need them most?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I would just say, like anything else, always beware, always check with the people that you're going to be donating to, or the overseas projects. I know in the past we've had a couple of overseas projects where we've donated things to, and they didn't go quite to where we hoped they would go. So even we have to be careful and make sure we fully vet people, because when you're dealing with overseas, you're not physically there. Everything sounds good. So I would just, follow up on some of the references. Like in our case, you could call a lot of the projects that we've installed and ask about, how did the experience go? Again, a lot of what we receive and repurpose is definitely benefiting a lot of our greater community, and we hope to expand that throughout. I hope that was a good answer, Melissa, for that.
I think that's good advice, and definitely take it offline, get on the phone and talk with a charity, just like you would if you were buying and selling solar equipment. It's always a good practice to just go offline, have an actual conversation with them. Some of our EnergyBin members even recommend traveling to the site and seeing for yourself. And I'm sure Good Sun wouldn't mind extra hands on deck for volunteering if you're a certified solar installer and want to get involved in that way as well. Okay, so Good Sun is really active in California area, like Grass Valley, your hometown, and overseas. But what if I'm a solar company who's located on the East Coast and I have material to donate? Will Good Sun take it?
Well, we would definitely consider the opportunity. We've had a couple of these come up in the past, and a lot of the contractors that we spoke to on these various projects were willing to actually pay for the shipping. And if they're not willing to pay for the shipping to our facility, then we just sort of negotiate the process here together. We had a couple large projects from Southern California where the panels were really good. We wanted them, but it was going to cost a lot of money, and we ended up meeting halfway, paying the shipping halfway. So there's always a negotiation process. We as a nonprofit just have to be careful that if something's costing us $10 and we're selling it for $20, is it worth it or not, long term? So we just have to make that decision, but always open to opportunities.
Sounds good. Okay, so I had talked about in my portion of the presentation a little bit of who wholesale buyers are. And from what I see mostly on EnergyBin, that trade is in the megawatt level. So when I say wholesale, I mean wholesale. But the solar recycle store through Good Sun is more definitely on the retail side, selling to end users and in smaller quantities. Can you tell us more about your buyers, who they are, where they're located, why they chose to go secondhand versus new, and maybe what applications they're using the secondhand material for?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah, definitely we're not selling megawatts worth of used panels or even new panels, because we don't get a lot of new panels. And the ones that we do get, we usually purchase and use them for projects. Typically what we see is a lot of DIYers, but a lot of the DIYers that come to our facility are pretty educated and know what they want. There are some that have no clue, and because we have, Eric and I both have good solar experience over the year, we can help guide them to make the right decisions for their off-grid system or their tiny house or their ground mount that they're installing. We also make very clear to many of the people that come and say, hey, I want to buy these panels. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do with them? I want to put them on my roof. Well, these panels are manufactured before 2014 and they cannot go on a roof. So your limitation is ground mount only. So we try to educate people as much as possible, guide them to places on the web that have a lot of information about how to do these off-grid systems, if you will, on their own. But another thing that we find, we found in our community, as you know, living in the Sierra Nevadas of California, and probably depending on where you're at, knowing that the Sierra Nevada mountains burn a good 2.5 to 3 months out of the year with these massive wildfires. Sadly, a lot of people become displaced and a lot of people are not able to get utilities back on their property quick enough for them to come back and habitate the property. And so we're finding a lot of fire victims coming and buying, 30, 40 panels, used panels. And once we hear the stories, we're like, here, let me take a huge discount off this because, the whole idea behind our nonprofit is to give back. We can't give everything away free, but we definitely give these type of people discounts. One particular person, and I'll move on, felt really horrible from. This guy built a shop on his property and PG&E came out and told him that his shop was 35 feet too far away from where it should have been, and then they were not going to put a PG&E drop to that shop. And so the cost was going to be $30,000. And this guy just realized that, God, not only have I lost everything on my property, but now I have to pay PG&E to put a pole in the dirt. So he decided to just go off grid. So that's what we're finding.
Wow, I'm glad you could help him. And
the other thing too, just quickly, we're finding a lot of installers that are finding opportunities. We're not talking big installers. We're talking mom and pop people that actually grew this industry that are finding opportunity to be able to buy used panels and install for people that don't have a lot of money. And they're still making decent money. We've had one guy show up last week that just does installs for free. He's retired. He likes doing this. He likes helping people. So a lot of things are changing. There's definitely an increase on that secondary market.
I'd also add to that, big opportunities if you are a technician and you have capacity to add a value added service to your business as an inspector, I would highly recommend it. That is, I see a lot of questions coming through the chat regarding the difference between trash and viable panels. And that is one way. I know every company who's dealing in secondhand modules on EnergyBin, which is only my experience in the industry, are already inspecting and testing the panels. Their company reputations depend on them being able to stand by the outcomes that are coming out of their testing. Some of them are refurbishers even, so they offer those limited time service warranties. Some of them will protect their companies further and offer 30-day money-back guarantees. I also recommend, if you're able to, if you're buying used panels and you can actually fly, you the buyer can fly to where those panels are and inspect them. Good Sun does that. I would highly recommend it because, we live in an age where unfortunately not everyone is using business as a force for good in the world. So you need to be mindful when you are dealing in business in the secondary market as well as a primary market. So And with that, let's kind of dig deeper, Vince, into what are some of the safety concerns of secondhand modules that you've seen from your experience? And then what do you think is actually worth repairing versus what should rather just be recycled at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that we're always a little careful on, most of the partners that we work with, they know what we're looking for. And so when they're removing these from service, whether it's a rooftop or a commercial application, um, they're they're testing them before they're removing them, or they already know because they've been monitoring and they're like, yeah, pretty typical 70-80% ish, of what they used to be rated at. And then when they're removing them, they're taking a quick look as well. So things that we look for immediately on panels, and like I said, a lot of our partners do this work for us. In fact, some of them even test them before they package them up, which is even great. We don't expect that, but it's nice to have. First thing we look at is back sheets. There are back sheets that are bubbly just because they got bubbly, and there's back sheets that are bubbly because there's arcing going on. As soon as we see any sign of arcing, unfortunately, that goes in the recycle pile. Sometimes the MC3 or 4 connectors are cut, obvious reasons, they're still good. We can either crimp another connector on, or we leave them as they are and let people decide if they want to use that panel as their home run or whatever. Missing J-box covers, easy to replace. We usually have quite a few of those. Sometimes if they're a little loose, we can, caulk around it with some sealant. But other than that, if they're arced, if they look arced, if the cells look like they're arcing, broken glass, of course, they go in the recycle pile. I have to say, from the amount of time we've been doing this, we don't have a whole lot that goes in the recycle pile. And we're really grateful for our partners that help eliminate this ahead of time.
That's excellent. I just was reading another question that I want to insert from the chat, because we've been talking about panels in general, but we haven't really deciphered between the different panel technology. Do you take thin film panels as a donation, and can those be shipped overseas as they're more considered like as a toxic good? Do you have any experience with that at all, Vince?
Yeah, we pretty much shy away from that a little bit. We've had a couple thin film products that were, in glass frames, just like kind of a regular solar module that looked pretty good that we took, and have actually had no issues with them. But any of the flexible PV, the peel off stuff, I know we've been offered that a lot. We just say we can't take it just because of the toxicity of it, and they should be recycled. We highly recommend the recycling of them.
Great. I'm just gonna check a little bit more here because I do want to get into more of the recycling side, because we've had some questions come through. So let's just talk in general about recycling for now. What efforts does Good Sun take with respect to recycling the non-viable panels? I know you mentioned to me at one point you have a great recycling partner who you're happy to plug on this show. And then also in terms of communicating the recyclability to your buyers and to your partners and just to the solar industry at large.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's kind of a two-part question. Well, one, definitely, I would like to just make very clear that we don't like to have to recycle our panels, meaning that we hope that most of them that come are in great working order, but our pile has grown, and we do have a local recycler in the Nevada area, and we've got a couple piles we need to send their way pretty soon. But a lot of people that buy from us, they are very educated when they show up, because they're sort of amazed at, number one, what we're doing and the nonprofit that we stand behind and the projects that we do. And they're really excited about that. They're excited about it because, you know, they've always said, you know, I've always wanted to do solar. I want to do the right thing, but it's just so expensive. And, you know, we're not rich people, you know, we work hard, and this really gives us an opportunity to help offset some of our costs. You know, I want to make an off-grid shop in the back. It's where I do a lot of my work on the weekend and stuff like that. And they know that these panels are probably good for another 10 years, and they know that what needs to happen to them. They seem to be, when they leave our facility, they have a pretty good education, because we both like to talk about what we're doing, why we're doing, and why this is important, because otherwise they would just end up in the landfill. So we always caution people and say, please, you know, use the system, you know, follow a recycling method. That's it.
Yes, I definitely agree. As I said, the main point I wanted to leave with all of you today was to consider the alternative, either resell or donate that's still viable equipment, or recycle the end of life. It's dead. It's time to retire that equipment to the recycling facility. We actually have an EnergyBin Insights webinar specifically dedicated to the PV recycling in the United States, where Evelyn Butler from SIA joined me. So I really encourage you to go out to our YouTube channel and check out that recording if you're more interested in that topic as well. It looks like we've come to the end of our time today. Vince, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really grateful for all the good work you're doing, you and Eric at Good Sun. And if you have more questions for Vince, please feel free to reach out to him. I'm available, as well as my colleagues Rob and Thomas here at EnergyBin, to work with you on a case-by-case basis if you're a solar company who is looking to buy or sell or do both the secondhand modules. We can help connect you to others in the secondary market who are doing that. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as our newsletter, and follow us on social media so that you can receive notifications for these webinars, as well as other free resources available on the secondary market, like the PV module price index that I mentioned earlier. If you are an industry professional who has a solution for PV repair, resale, and recycling, and would like to be a guest presenter on this webinar, please reach out to me with a topic proposal. I'd love to have you on the show. And thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Melissa, as well.